I was sitting there in my cramped office in Phoenix, Arizona, surrounded by stacks of corporate internal documents piled high on my desk. My name is Kevin Walker, 35 years old, an ordinary internal auditor whose days blurred into one another with numbers, reports, and endless meetings. It was a typical sweltering desert afternoon, the sun glaring through the dusty glass window making the air even more stifling. I was focused on reviewing a minor case of irregular expenses, my fingers flying across the keyboard when suddenly my phone vibrated. The soft buzz was enough to startle me like a bad omen. The screen lit up, displaying the name, Natalie Gomez. I frowned, my heart skipping a beat. She was my sister Mia's best friend. I'd only met her a few times during rare family gatherings when Mia brought friends home. The last time was Christmas the previous year. We'd exchanged polite small talk, awkward smiles about the weather and the food. We'd never even swapped phone numbers, let alone texted or called. Why was she messaging me? I wondered, picking up the phone, a vague unease rising in my chest. Maybe a wrong number, or something Mia asked her to pass on. I swiped into the messages and the world around me seemed to freeze. The fragmented lines hit me like a punch to the chest. Kevin, it's Natalie, Mia's friend. I don't know how to explain this, but Mia was kicked out of her husband's house a few days ago, along with Leo. I thought you should know. My heart stopped. Mia kicked out of her husband's house? My little sister, the one who had always been the family's pride, now thrown out with her 3-year-old son? Leo, the poor boy with intellectual developmental delays. It couldn't be true. I read it over and over, hoping it was a cruel joke or a misunderstanding. Even though I'd only met her a few times, I knew Natalie wasn't the type for that. She'd been Mia's best friend since college, always discreet and reliable. Why would she send something like this? My hands trembled slightly as I immediately called her back. The phone rang a few times before Natalie's voice came through, anxious and hurried. You read the message? What's going on, Natalie? Mia was kicked out. What do you mean? Tell me everything. My voice shook, but I tried to stay calm, not wanting to alarm her. The office around me buzzed with activity, colleagues laughing at the next desk. But to me, everything felt hazy. Natalie sighed, her voice lowering as if afraid someone might overhear. It's true, Kevin. I only found out during a rare conversation with Mia. She let it slip when we met at a coffee shop. Mia said her mother-in-law kicked her out, wouldn't let her stay anymore, and she had to take Leo with her. But she made me swear not to tell your family. I offered for her to stay with me temporarily, but Mia flatly refused. She looked exhausted, much thinner. I went numb. My mind spun. Mia, my sister, always so strong and resilient. She'd married Stephen Walker 4 years ago, a man from a wealthy family, and we'd worried about rumors of his harsh mother-in-law. But Mia had insisted everything would be fine. I hung up without another word, gripping the phone until my knuckles turned white. I immediately called Mia. The phone rang and rang, 1 ring, 2, 3. But she didn't pick up. Each ring stretched the unease in my chest like the ticking of a time bomb. I tried again, no answer. Then I texted, Mia, where are you? Call me right now. Still silence. My heart burned with anxiety. The unfinished work on my desk meant nothing now. I stood up abruptly, grabbed my jacket, and rushed out of the office without even asking my boss. Colleagues stared in surprise, but I didn't care. I had to find Mia. Right now. I raced to the parking lot, hands shaking as I fumbled for my keys. My mind was chaos, images of Mia and Leo flashing constantly. Where was she now? Homeless, penniless, with a sick child? I sped out onto the road, the glaring Arizona afternoon sun blinding, but I felt nothing. I tried tracing the last places I thought Mia might go. First, an old friend's house from her high school days in the Phoenix suburbs. I floored the accelerator, running a few red lights, heart pounding. When I arrived, I banged on the door. Her friend opened it and shook her head. You're looking for Mia? She's not here. What's wrong, Kevin? My first hope shattered. I drove on to the cheap apartment complex near downtown where Mia had lived before marriage. Traffic jammed, frustrating me. I pounded the steering wheel. I muttered curses, sweat pouring down. At the complex, I ran through the rows of units asking the landlord, "Mia Walker?" "No, I haven't seen anyone like that." Each answer cut like a knife. Night fell, darkness spreading from the desert, turning the air bitterly cold despite the daytime heat. I continued to public hospitals thinking maybe Mia had taken Leo for treatment or something worse. The thought tightened my chest. At the first hospital, I pushed to the reception desk, voice hoarse. "Excuse me, is there a patient named Mia Walker? Or a child, Leo Walker?" The staff checked the computer and shook their heads. "No one by those names. Second hospital, third." Still nothing. Hope dwindled. I was exhausted, hungry, thirsty, but I didn't stop. My mind spun with worst-case scenarios, Mia wandering the streets, Leo crying from hunger or worse. Then I remembered one last place, one I never imagined she'd go. A shelter for homeless women and children on the city's outskirts. A place for the desperate, victims of abuse or those who'd lost everything. I pulled up to the old building, neon lights flickering in the dark. People came and went, women with children, weary faces. The air was damp, mixed with smells of sweat, cold food, and disinfectant. I stepped inside, feeling out of place in the crowd. My heart pounded as my eyes scanned everywhere. Long benches, dark corners, children crying. And then I saw Mia. She was huddled on a bench, gaunt and disheveled, clothes rumpled, hair messy. In her arms was Leo, the boy, clinging silently to his mother, eyes vacant amid the noise. Leo, my poor nephew with developmental delays, neither crying nor smiling, just sitting there like a small statue. I stood frozen, all the pent-up emotions exploding in my chest. Tears welled up, but I held them back. Mia, my sister, once beautiful and cheerful, reduced to this? A damp, moldy shelter, a place our family had never imagined? Mia looked up and saw me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she didn't dare cry. She turned her face away as if afraid of bothering me or being scolded. I approached, legs heavy as lead. I called her name, my voice breaking. She looked at me, lips trembling. "How did you find me here? How did you know?" I didn't scold or complain. I just gently helped her stand. Leo still clung tightly, unresponsive. I took the boy's hand and led the two of them out of the shelter to my car. The engine started and we drove straight to my home. The journey was long and silent, but inside me raged a storm. What had happened? Why hadn't Mia called? And now? What could I do to save her? That night, Phoenix felt colder than ever before. The desert wind howled through the car windows, carrying a bone-chilling cold despite it being only early autumn. I glanced at the passenger seat. Mia sat huddled, holding Leo tightly in her arms. The boy remained completely silent, staring out the window with vacant eyes as if unaware of the world around him. Mia kept her head down, messy hair covering half her face, her shoulders trembling. Not from the cold, but from everything bottled up inside. I wanted to ask right away, to shout why she hadn't called me sooner, but I held back. This wasn't the time. She needed warmth, food, rest. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, trying to stay calm, but my mind spun with unanswered questions. We arrived home, my small apartment on the outskirts of the city where I'd lived alone for years. It wasn't luxurious, just a modest two-bedroom place with simple furnishings, but at least it was cozy and safe. I parked, turned off the engine, and gently opened the door for Mia. "Come inside, sis. I'll turn on the heater." Mia nodded weakly, carrying Leo as she followed me. The air inside was still chilly from the morning, so I quickly turned on the gas heater in the living room. The blue flames danced, spreading warmth throughout the space. I fetched 2 clean blankets from the closet and wrapped them around the mother and son. Mia sat on the sofa, pulling the blanket up to Leo's chin, whispering something to him. Leo didn't respond, just nestled closer to his mother. I quietly went to the kitchen, trying not to make loud noises. My mind was still in turmoil, but I knew I needed to do something practical to help her calm down. I opened the fridge and pulled out the remaining vegetables: carrots, potatoes, onions, and some frozen chicken. I'd make a simple hot soup, nothing fancy, but nourishing. I chopped the vegetables quickly, eyes stinging from the onions, but also from the emotions surging in my chest. How had life pushed my sister to this point? Mia had once been the cheerful girl, always smiling, excelling in school, dreaming of a happy family. And now, wandering in a shelter with her sick child. I poured water into the pot, added seasoning, and let it simmer on low heat. The aroma of soup spread warm and comforting like a small solace amid the storm. About half an hour later, the soup was ready. I ladled it into 2 large bowls, added toasted bread, and brought it to the living room. "Eat up, sis, it's hot." Mia looked up, eyes red, but nodded in thanks. Leo sat beside her, tiny hands holding a spoon, but Mia had to feed him. They ate heartily, almost without pausing. Mia took big spoonfuls. Leo gulped down the soft potato pieces. The way they ate suggested they hadn't had a proper meal in days, sunken cheeks, eyes lighting up just from feeling full. I sat across from them, watching silently, my heart twisting in pain. A mix of shock and sorrow so intense it was hard to breathe. Mia, my sister, who had once lived in a luxurious villa, now reduced to this hunger. And Leo, the poor boy, probably used to meager meals just to get by. After they finished, the atmosphere warmed a bit. The heater crackled softly, blankets wrapped snugly, and the hot soup had calmed them. Mia leaned back, Leo dozing off on her lap, breathing steadily. I waited a while longer, giving her space to breathe, then gently asked, "Mia, tell me what happened. I'm not forcing you, but I need to know so I can help." I sat across from her, voice soft, afraid a harsher word might break her. Mia was already so fragile. Gaunt, dark circles under her eyes, like a shadow of her former self. At first, Mia was dazed, silent for a long time, her vacant gaze fixed on the old wooden floor as if digging up memories she'd tried to bury deep. I didn't push, just sat there waiting. Finally, she began to speak, voice barely a whisper, words fragmented. "I don't know where to start. Stephen." She paused, swallowed hard, then continued. "Stephen is a weak husband, Kevin. No backbone. He always obeys his mother. Never once stood up for me." I listened, heart pounding. Mia spoke slowly, as if pulling each memory from the darkness. Her marriage had started like a dream. Stephen, the wealthy, polished man, promising a happy life. But once the villa doors closed, the truth emerged. Her mother-in-law, Dolores Walker, was cruel beyond imagination. She controlled Mia's every daily activity. What to eat, what to wear, how much to spend. Every bill had to go through her. Every phone call had to be reported. She turned me into a prisoner in my own home, Kevin, nitpicking everything like I was a freeloader. Then Leo was born, premature, with intellectual developmental delays, not speaking, not responding quickly like normal children. That's when hell truly began. Dolores blamed Mia, screaming in her face, "You don't know how to give birth. This child is your mistake." She saw Leo as a burden, a stain on the wealthy family's reputation. The cruelty escalated. Mia was forced to work like a maid in that luxurious villa, cleaning, cooking, laundry from dawn to dusk. No going out, no meeting friends, no calling family. I lived in isolation, Kevin, surrounded by gilded walls, but it was a prison. My husband saw everything, but he never intervened, just bowed his head to his mother. I clenched my fists, struggling to contain my anger. Mia continued, voice trembling. She even brought a young woman into the house, some Carla, hinting at replacing me to bear a child that suited her. She called me useless, unable to produce a healthy son. Day after day, she wore me down. I was exhausted, crying alone at night, but too afraid to tell anyone. And then the breaking point. Carla got pregnant. Dolores didn't hesitate. She threw Mia and Leo out. She tossed our things onto the doorstep, cut off all support. Stephen stood there, silent. Not a word in my defense. I took Leo and wandered for days, then ended up at the shelter. Hearing that, I felt a surge of rage and bitterness. Blood rushed to my head. I wanted to storm over to that villa right then and punch Stephen and Dolores. How dare they treat my sister like this? A human being, a mother, turned into a slave and discarded? Part of me wanted to blame her. Why did you endure in silence? Why not tell the family? So I had to hear it from Natalie and run around frantically searching. But all those blaming thoughts choked in my throat when I looked at Leo. The boy sat close to his mother, eyes vacant, neither crying nor reacting, just sitting there like a lost little soul. And Mia, worn out after years of physical and emotional erosion, pale skin, trembling hands holding the soup bowl. The silent tears rolling down Mia's bowed face pulled me back to old memories. I remembered it clearly, the day she decided to marry. Our family in Prescott, our parents advising. Mia, don't go into that house. Dolores is notoriously cruel and controlling. Rumors say she drove the previous daughter-in-law mad. But Mia was resolute, eyes shining. Kevin, I believe in Stephen. If I live well and endure, things will change. That naive faith now shattered. She had paid for it with her life, her health, her spirit, and Leo's future. I realized my sister had already learned her mistake the hardest way. She was bearing the heaviest consequences. No one needed to add blame. I said nothing more, just stood up and gently suggested, "Come on, sis. Let's get Leo cleaned up and rest. I'll prepare the room for you two. Put everything aside for this rare quiet night. We'll figure it out tomorrow." Mia nodded, wiping her tears, and carried Leo to the bathroom. I stood there watching them go, heart heavy. The storm inside me hadn't subsided, but now was the time to care. The road ahead was long, and I knew the real battle was just beginning. In the days that followed, Mia and Leo stayed temporarily at my place. During the day, things seemed calm, at least on the surface. Mia started cleaning the house and cooking simple meals from the groceries I bought. Leo played quietly with a few old toys I dug out from the garage. The boy remained silent, but at least he wasn't as withdrawn as that first night. I went to work as usual, conducting internal audits, but my mind kept drifting to her. The office in Phoenix was still stifling with piles of paperwork and colleagues chatting, but I only nodded politely, my heart full of worry. In the evenings, we ate dinner together, making small talk about the desert weather or my job. Mia tried to smile, tried to act normal, but I could clearly see the pain still haunting her. But every night when the house grew quiet, I lay awake, tormented. Sleeping on the sofa, since I'd given the bedroom to the mother and son, I couldn't fall asleep. Images of Mia's story replayed in my mind like a never-ending horror film. The Walker family villa, once called her home, now appeared in my thoughts as a gilded prison. Dolores with her fake smile, Stephen bowing cowardly, and Mia, my sister, tormented day after day. How had she endured it alone? Why hadn't she called me? Those questions gnawed at my heart, making me toss and turn, sweating profusely even after turning off the heater. The initial feeling of helplessness, like a stone weighing me down, gradually turned into resolve. I couldn't pretend this had never happened. I couldn't let them, Dolores and Stephen, escape responsibility. They had to pay for what they'd done to Mia and Leo. I wouldn't let my sister suffer in vain. The next morning, I made my decision. As Mia sat feeding Leo spoonfuls of porridge, I spoke slowly, almost as if to myself first. "Sis, I don't think we can let this slide. I'm going to sue them. Emotional abuse, unlawful confinement, abandoning you and Leo, they can't deny everything. The truth has to come out." Mia looked up, the spoon freezing midair. Her eyes widened in fear. "You really want to sue them?" "But they're rich, Kevin. We can't win against them." I held her hand tightly, feeling the tremble in her palm. "I know, but we can't stay silent forever. Leave the rest to me." That very day, I filed the lawsuit and contacted a lawyer I knew through a colleague. He wasn't famous or top tier, but he was straightforward, dedicated, and his fees were within my means. We agreed to charge Mia's in-laws with emotional abuse, unlawful confinement, and abandonment of the mother and child. In my mind then, I held a simple, almost naive belief. the court would see the truth. How could it not? Mia was the victim, and Leo, that poor boy, was living proof. The hearings proceeded one after another, faster than I expected. The Phoenix District Courthouse, cold rooms with old wooden benches and a tense atmosphere. From the start, the odds were heavily against us, stacked in favor of the wealthy in-laws. They hired high-profile lawyers, seasoned professionals, men in expensive suits, speaking smoothly like oil. Every argument from our side was systematically dismantled. My lawyer tried to present. The defendants controlled the plaintiff's daily life, turning her into a prisoner in her own home. But the opposing lawyer smirked. Where's the evidence? It's just one-sided testimony? I sat there, gripping Mia's hand, heart pounding. Each hearing felt like a battle, and we were losing ground. Dolores appeared in court with a cold demeanor like an untouchable queen. She wore an elegant black outfit, hair pinned up high, eyes sweeping over us as if we were insects. With her lawyers, she presented a series of medical records, from hospital documents showing Mia had been diagnosed with postpartum depression. She underwent psychological treatment for crises while caring for her intellectually disabled son. The opposing lawyer read aloud, voice dripping with fake sympathy. I was stunned. Mia had mentioned being forced to see doctors, but now they were using it against her. Mia sat beside me, hands trembling, face pale. I wasn't depressed, she whispered. The in-laws didn't stop there. They produced text messages, emails, and made testimonies. Mia's messages to Stephen, "I'm so tired, I need rest." Emails to friends, "Sometimes I just want to leave for peace." Made statements. The mistress often broke down, suffered insomnia, showed signs of panic. They painted a picture of Mia as unstable, voluntarily leaving. Then they showed security camera footage, video of Mia carrying Leo out of the house, no struggle, no force. The family neither prevented nor expelled her, the lawyer asserted. The video was clear but lacked context. Mia left because she was thrown out, yet it looked voluntary. I gripped the chair, teeth grinding. When Mia was called to testify, my heart tightened. She stepped to the stand, trembling and flustered, hands clutching the rail. The opposing lawyer bombarded her with sharp questions. Did you ever say you wanted to leave? Were you depressed? Why didn't you call the police right away? Mia stammered, her account fragmented and incoherent. I was controlled. She threw me out. But her voice was small, eyes averted, not convincing enough. The judge frowned. The jury whispered. I wanted to rush up to help, but could only sit helplessly. Mia stepped down, sobbing in my arms. I'm sorry, Kevin, I couldn't do it. And Stephen, the cowardly husband. He stood in the courtroom, neither denying nor defending his wife. Silent before every accusation, completely submissive under his mother's guidance. Dolores sat behind, eyes sharp, signaling him. Stephen bowed his head, stammering, I don't know anything. Not a word to protect Mia, not a glance at Leo. I looked at him, filled with contempt. How could he? That was his wife and child. The trial dragged on, tense as a drawn bowstring. Finally, the court delivered the verdict. The judge read it in an even tone. There is insufficient evidence to prove the plaintiff was expelled. The evidence suggests she left voluntarily during a period of mental instability. We lost the case completely. No favorable ruling for Mia and Leo. No compensation, no custody rights, nothing. The courtroom fell silent, then murmurs rose. Dolores smiled triumphantly. Stephen avoided eye contact. I stood quietly, leading Mia out, hand tightly holding hers. My heart felt like lead. Justice hadn't sided with us, at least not this time. The truth wouldn't protect itself if I didn't find another way. Outside the court, the desert wind blew bitterly cold, but the anger inside me burned hotter than ever. The fight wasn't over. It had only suffered its first defeat. After the courtroom defeat, the real dread finally crashed in, like an undercurrent sweeping away everything I had built. Bills began arriving in waves, court fees, lawyer costs, and all the miscellaneous expenses from the prolonged hearings. I sat at the kitchen table, opening each envelope, my heart tightening at the figures. The savings I had accumulated over years from overtime shifts, skipped summer vacations, foregoing unnecessary purchases, were now nearly depleted. In just a few weeks, my bank account dropped from 6 figures to 3, then 2. I stared at the computer screen, the red numbers glaring, and wondered, what do I do now? The office remained the same, but every day coming home felt like carrying an invisible burden, pressing on my shoulders until it was hard to breathe. At the same time, I had to cover all living expenses for Mia and Leo. My small apartment now felt cramped with 3 people, and costs skyrocketed. Electricity, because the heater ran all night to keep Leo warm. Water, because Mia bathed daily to maintain hygiene for the boy. Gas, for driving Mia to interviews or taking Leo to regular doctor checkups. Groceries, no longer simple meals for one, now special milk for Leo, fresh vegetables for Mia to regain strength. And countless small things. Medicine, replacement clothes for Mia since she'd only brought a few worn outfits from the shelter. Expenses mounted daily like a money-eating monster. I had to tighten spending, calculating every bill at month's end. Sitting at the table, my notebook filled with figures. Electricity, $150. Water, $80. Groceries, $400. Gas, $100. I cut out morning coffee runs, brewing at home instead. Each grocery checkout, I stood tense, heart pounding, hoping my card wouldn't be declined. The small pleasures that once relieved stress were gradually eliminated, and life narrowed to just work, home, and endless worries. Before, weekends meant fishing at a lake near Phoenix or movies with friends. Now no. The fishing rod gathered dust in the garage. I declined invitations. Sorry, I'm busy with family stuff. Instead, days blurred into sameness. Wake early to cook breakfast, play with Leo a bit, then rush to the office. Evenings. Help Mia clean, care for Leo. Late nights. Budgeting. Life felt like an endless loop, no escape. I looked in the mirror, dark circles, stubbly beard, and wondered, how much longer can I hold on? The anger from court still smoldered, now mixed with fear of running out of money, of Mia and Leo suffering more. Once her mental state stabilized a bit, Mia didn't want to remain a burden. She proactively job hunted to contribute, and I was truly proud of her for it. Mia printed resumes, dressed in her old but neatly ironed clothes, and quietly scoured Phoenix. Before leaving, she looked at me and said softly but firmly, "Kevin, I'll find something." For the first time in ages, I saw a spark in her eyes, fragile but hopeful. But reality was harsh. She faced constant rejections due to lack of recent experience after years as a housewife, long employment gaps, and caring for a child with special needs. Employers shook their heads. "Sorry, we need full-time with no commitments." Mia came home, shoulders slumped, but forced a smile. "I'll try somewhere else tomorrow." I hugged her, heart aching. She'd once been an outstanding student, now starting from zero. With no options left, Mia took part-time manual jobs with meager, unstable pay. Waitressing at fast food places, cleaning at grocery stores, or babysitting for neighbors. Shifts lasted just a few hours, paid hourly, $10, $12. The earnings quickly vanished into living costs and Leo's care. Mia brought home her hard-earned change, counting it carefully before handing it to me. "Here, Kevin, I want to help a little." But it barely made a dent. She spent on bus fares to work, medicine when Leo had panic episodes. I watched her toil, coming home with swollen feet, and felt deep sorrow. Mia minimized personal spending to a heartbreaking degree. She wore the same few old outfits repeatedly, a faded blouse, jeans with frayed hems, no makeup, no new haircut. Always eating less to save for Leo and me. Her health hadn't fully recovered from the breakdown, gaunt, pale, often fatigued. I urged her to eat more. "You need strength for Leo." But Mia just smiled sadly. "My son comes first." Nights she stayed awake with headaches but never complained, only sipping water quietly. Meanwhile, Leo's condition grew more evident, adding to the strain. The boy had trouble sleeping, often startling awake at night, easily frightened by loud noises, cars outside, doors slamming, causing him to scream and cling to his mother. He needed constant supervision, couldn't be left alone even briefly. Nights in the house were rarely uninterrupted. I woke multiple times to Leo's cries, then Mia's soothing, "It's okay, sweetie, mommy's here." Leo needed specialist visits, but money? We only took him to public clinics, waiting hours. His developmental delays showed no improvement, still silent, eyes distant. I played with him, trying simple words, but Leo just stared, unresponsive. I tried taking extra work when possible, but time was fragmented between my main job and family care. Office overtime projects, I took them, staying late under cold neon lights, reviewing reports. Weekends, freelance auditing for small firms, but exhaustion lingered like a fog. Eyes burning, head buzzing, hands shaking on the drive home. Just hold on, I told myself. But sometimes mid-shift I paused, gasping, feeling on the verge of collapse. Some evenings, the three of us sat silently in the quiet kitchen, no one speaking, each carrying private worries. Dim yellow light over the simple table, cold soup, dry bread. Mia gazing at Leo, anxious for his future. Leo sitting still, fiddling with a spoon. I staring at piled bills, dreading next month. The air heavy like a time bomb. It felt one more incident. Leo seriously ill, car breakdown, job loss, and everything would collapse. We avoided eye contact, avoided talking about court or the future. Just silence, swallowing hard. Mental and financial pressure piled on the three of us in the small home. Some nights I sat alone in the living room after Mia and Leo slept, overwhelmed by deadlock. Effort seemed only enough to survive day to day. No progress, no hope. I looked out the window at the pitch-black Arizona desert, wind howling, and wondered, did I do wrong? Sue and end up depleted like this? Tears rolled down. For the first time, I cried from helplessness. Mia and Leo deserved better. I couldn't let them suffer forever. I realized if we continued this way, we'd soon be completely drained. For the first time, I accepted I couldn't carry it all alone. I wasn't a superhero, just an ordinary brother. After much hesitation, sleepless nights weighing options, I thought of our parents, the only ones who could still help. They lived in Prescott, a few hours' drive from Phoenix. I'd tried keeping it secret to spare their worry, but no choice now. I decided it was time to go back, tell the full truth I'd kept bottled up. Tomorrow morning, I'd drive there. But my heart raced. How would they react? And was there any clue from the past to turn the tide? The next morning, I woke earlier than usual, while the sun had yet to peek over the desert mountains. The house was completely silent. Mia and Leo were still sound asleep in the bedroom, their breathing steady as if unaware of the storms ahead. I brewed a strong black coffee and sat at the kitchen table, quietly gazing through the window where darkness was slowly yielding to a pale pink dawn. My heart pounded, like the feeling before an unavoidable important appointment. I couldn't bear to wake Mia. She needed rest after days of exhaustion, so I quietly left a note on the table. I'm heading to Prescott to see Mom and Dad. I'll be back soon. Love you and Leo. Then I grabbed my jacket, closed the door softly, carrying the words I hadn't yet said. I slipped into the garage and started the car. The engine hummed low as I pulled out of Phoenix. The familiar route, Highway 17 winding through the desert past saguaro cacti and Red Rock Hills. But my mood today was heavier than ever. With each mile, I rehearsed what I would say. Mom and Dad would be shocked. They adored Mia, and I'd hidden everything from them, thinking I could handle it alone. Now what? We were drained, and I needed help. Desert wind howled through the windows, carrying the dry scent of dust. I turned on the radio, but the country music only made me more restless. Memories flooded back. Childhood trips to Prescott, the whole family crammed in the old car, laughing the entire way. Dad driving, Mom singing along to the radio, Mia and I fighting over snacks. Now, alone on the road, I felt an unfamiliar loneliness. Prescott gradually appeared with its small streets, green pines, and cooler air than Phoenix. My parents' old house on the outskirts, a 2-story wooden home with a small vegetable garden and white fence. I parked in front, heart pounding. Mom and Dad, Frank and Patricia Walker, were probably having their morning coffee as always. I knocked, and Dad opened the door, eyes widening in surprise. "Kevin? Son, what brings you here so suddenly? You didn't call?" He wore his old plaid shirt, hair grayer than last time. Mom rushed from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, hugging me tightly. "My dear, come in. I'll make you coffee." They welcomed me with surprise mixed with joy, but after a few brief questions, "How's work? You look tired?" They sensed something serious. My face must have given it away. Dark circles, forced smile. We sat in the living room, surrounded by family photos on the walls, and I took a deep breath before starting. I told them everything from beginning to end, holding nothing back. Starting with Natalie's message, how I found Mia and Leo at the shelter, gaunt, huddled among the weary crowd. She was kicked out of her husband's house, Mom and Dad, with Leo so young. My voice trembled describing the scene. The smell of disinfectant and cold food still haunted me. Then life at my place. Mia recounting her hellish years with weak-willed Stephen and cruel Dolores. She controlled everything, turned Mia into a maid, even brought a mistress home and threw Mia out when the woman got pregnant. Mom and Dad sat frozen, faces paling. I continued with the lawsuit, the tense hearings, twisted evidence, Mia trembling on the stand, Stephen silent like a coward. We lost the case, Mom and Dad. The court ruled Mia left voluntarily due to mental instability. And finally, our exhaustion. Savings depleted, mounting costs, Mia's manual labor, Leo's sleepless nights. I can't carry it anymore. We need help. Hearing it all, Mom and Dad couldn't hide their heartbreak and regret. Mom cried, hand over her mouth, tears rolling down wrinkled cheeks. My Mia. How did she endure alone? I suspected from the start, but why weren't we there sooner? She blamed herself, voice choking. Dad sat silent a moment, face reddening with anger, then comforted Mom. Hey Frank, we have to do something. Mia's our daughter, Leo our grandson. They ached for Mia's silent suffering, years of isolation and torment, and blamed themselves. Dad shook his head. We should have intervened earlier. When Mia married, we heard rumors about Dolores but thought she'd be fine. The living room felt heavy, the clock ticking, stretching time. I sat there, heart lighter for having spoken, but still anxious, awaiting their response. Without hesitation, Mom and Dad said they were ready to help financially so I could continue supporting Mia and Leo through this hardship. Dad patted my shoulder. Son, we have savings. We're old. We won't use it all. Spend it on Mia and Leo. Mom nodded. I'll transfer it right away. And if needed, they can stay here temporarily. My heart warmed, as if a weight had been partially lifted. They didn't blame me for hiding it, only worried for my sister. We discussed details, how much money, how to send it, plans for Leo's care. Dad suggested bringing the boy to Prescott for a familiar doctor. Mom offered to cook and send food to Phoenix. For the first time in ages, I felt hope. I wasn't carrying it alone. After a long pause, Dad suddenly mentioned an old story he'd never shared before, related to Mia's in-laws. We were sipping coffee, the atmosphere easing, when he set down his cup, face serious. Kevin, there's something I never told you. About the Walker family. My heart raced, a hunch something important was coming. Dad sighed, gazing out at swaying pines. Years ago, that family was involved in a serious legal scandal. Sued for fraud and asset misappropriation in business dealings. Dad spoke slowly, dredging up old memories. The Walker Company, a real estate and investment firm, had been accused of defrauding clients. They promised high returns, used vague contracts, then seized money during disputes. A group of clients sued for large compensation. The case never reached a public conclusion because they settled with a huge sum, paying off plaintiffs' out-of-court deals, burying the whole affair until it faded into obscurity. Media covered it little. They had connections. Business circles whispered, then went quiet. Frank said he knew through old contacts in the industry. He'd driven trucks for big companies, knew many people. I heard from an old friend at the county court, but I stayed silent. The case was closed, no clear evidence left. And I didn't want to affect Mia's marriage before it started. She loved Stephen. I feared it would ruin her happiness. Dad looked at me, eyes full of regret. Now I regret it. If I'd spoken up, maybe Mia wouldn't have suffered like this. I was stunned, as if struck by lightning, realizing Mia's in-laws weren't just cruel personally, tormenting my sister, abandoning Leo, but had a shady legal and ethical past. Dolores wasn't just a vicious mother-in-law, she was a manipulator using money to cover crimes. Stephen surely knew, but stayed silent as always. My mind reeled. This old scandal explained why they so easily twisted evidence in court. They were used to settling with money, hiding truth. In that moment, I realized this secret could be the missing piece, a key strong enough to turn the tide and seek justice for my sister. My heart raced, hope flickering in the darkness. Dad, are there still records? Can I look it up? Dad nodded. Probably at the old county court. I'll help contact my friend. We talked more, planning. I'd dig deeper, find evidence. Mom listened worriedly. Be careful, son. They're dangerous. But I wasn't afraid. This was a chance. From their murky past, I'd expose them. On the drive back to Phoenix that afternoon, night had fallen, but my heart felt brighter. The familiar road now carried new hope. I called Mia. Sis, I have good news. Mom and Dad are helping, and I have a lead on the Walkers. Her voice trembled. Really, Kevin? I thought we were out of options. I was so scared, afraid no matter how hard we tried, nothing would change. But if Mom and Dad are with us, if you find that lead, maybe this time it'll be different. I briefed her, and for the first time we genuinely laughed. But anticipation remained. Was the old scandal strong enough to change everything? I'd find out. The fight was entering a new phase, full of drama and surprises. Back in Phoenix, it was already late at night, but my mind refused to rest. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop screen glowing brightly under the dim yellow light. Mia and Leo had gone to bed. The house was silent except for the desert wind howling outside the window. Dad had given me a few details. The lawsuit over 10 years ago involving the Walker family company accused of fraud and asset misappropriation. Dad had said, the company was called Walker Investments back then, sued by a group of clients demanding large compensation but settled out of court. I took a deep breath, hands trembling slightly as I typed into the search bar. This was the start, gathering evidence in the shadows quietly. My heart pounded, as if I were sneaking into the enemy's lair. If Dad was right, this could be the bomb that blew everything up. I began with Dad's leads, searching for the old civil lawsuit involving Mia's in-laws' company. Arizona has an online court system. I vaguely remembered it from internal audits at work. I typed e-Access Arizona Judicial Branch, the official site allowing access to court records online. It's free for civil and criminal cases from 2010 onward, though sometimes registration or fees are needed for full copies. I quickly created an account and entered the company name, Walker Investments Lawsuit Arizona. Results loaded slowly, testing my patience. My heart raced when I saw a case from 2012. Plaintiffs were a group of 5 people accusing fraud in real estate investment packages. I clicked the docket, the case at Maricopa County Superior Court covering Phoenix. I found the case records at the county court, clearly showing the lawsuit was settled out of court with no final judgment, but accompanied by a large financial settlement agreement. The documents detailed. Plaintiffs demanded $1.5 million for being tricked into signing contracts promising 20% annual returns. But the company withheld funds and refused refunds during disputes. No public trial. Just a court order noting settled out of court with an undisclosed settlement amount, but from notes, estimated over $800,000. I printed it out, gripping the paper tightly. This was the first evidence. They'd used money to silence people, cover mistakes. But why were they still operating? I dug deeper, feeling like a detective in a movie, sweating despite the cool room. Following business records, I switched to the Arizona Corporation Commission website, which stores all info on registered companies in the state. Searching Walker Investments revealed the history. The sued company changed its legal entity shortly after the settlement in 2014 to Elite Capital Partners, LLC. Leadership remained the same. Dolores Walker as chairman, Stephen as vice president. They'd just changed the shell, kept the core, continuing operations under a new name but with the same leaders. I downloaded the registration documents, noting the headquarters address still in Phoenix, just a few blocks from their villa. Anger boiled inside me. They thought a name change erased the past? No way. This was a clear link, a red thread from past to present. I didn't stop there. I obtained current contracts from the new company and noticed the same vague clauses from the old lawsuit. To get contracts, I had to be clever. Couldn't call directly, risking suspicion. I posed as a potential investor, created a new email, and contacted via Elite Capital Partners website. They sent sample contracts, advertising safe investments with high returns. I read carefully, heart racing. The contracts showed the company selling investment packages with promised returns and refunds, but buried unfavorable clauses to impose fees and retain client money during disputes. For example, promised 15 to 25% annual returns, but with a flexible management fee up to 10%. Plus dispute resolution clauses favoring the company, limiting client lawsuit rights. In disputes, all invested money was held for investigation with no refund commitment. Comparing to the old lawsuit records, I saw they'd used nearly identical clauses to withhold client money, then called it a different name, dispute processing fee. The contract structure was almost identical, just rephrased to avoid detection. The excitement built, like assembling a puzzle with the final piece emerging. I contacted some current disputing clients, gathering emails, invoices, and confirmed damage complaints. How to find them? I searched forums like Reddit and Better Business Bureau, typing Elite Capital Partners Complaints Arizona. Results showed a few posts from dissatisfied clients. I messaged them privately, introducing myself as acquainted with a similar victim, promising anonymity. Soon 3 responded. A retired elderly man who lost nearly $50,000, his life savings. A young newlywed couple who lost their modest house down payment. They sent scanned emails, investment invoices, contracts, and refusal letters citing clause violations. It was clear. Initial promises one way, later handling completely different, causing undeniable financial harm. The elderly man added bitterly, "They said if no returns, full refund, but when I demanded, they deducted all sorts of fees, barely anything left." I saved everything, organizing into a dedicated folder. Inside, a strange feeling, excitement at having what I needed, anger at how many had fallen into the same trap as my sister. Placing new contracts beside the old lawsuit records, I immediately spotted anomalies, clause structures nearly identical. I printed everything, spread across the kitchen table, comparing line by line. In the old case, 15% dispute processing fee. In new contracts, renamed internal investigation fee, ranging 12 to 18%. Same essence, different name. Promises unchanged, high returns, low risk, too good to be true. I recalled investment scam tactics, lure with promises, then vague fees, clauses to retain money in disputes. By then it was crystal clear. Not isolated cases, but a repeating pattern. Same methods, same tricks, just new packaging. The evidence chain was concrete enough to prove ongoing fraud, no longer suspicion. My heart raced, as if holding something huge. But after excitement came cold sobriety. I knew I had to be extremely careful. If they discovered my digging into their past, they'd surely strike back. At the same time, I gathered all legal documents related to Mia's marriage, including papers, emails, and messages she'd managed to keep after leaving. Mia gave me an old box, marriage certificate, Leo's medical records, printed emails. among them a chain of emails and messages that chilled me. One email from Mia to Steven. "Honey, I want a part-time job. Leo needs specialist checkups." But the reply wasn't from Steven. He'd forwarded it to his mother. Dolores's response, short, cold. "No need. Stay home and care for the child. We can afford it." On WhatsApp, Mia repeatedly begged to take Leo to doctors. Always delays. Wait until next week, then no rush. Promises stretched weeks into months. Seeing that chain, I understood clearly. This wasn't natural mental breakdown as they'd claimed. Mia had no decision rights, no work permission, even denied taking her child to needed appointments. Intentional control, an invisible cage built with seemingly harmless words enough to suffocate a person. I decided to push the investigation further. To prove control, I needed someone from inside the house, a non-family witness. Mia clearly remembered a former maid, Maria Lopez, who worked for the Walkers nearly 2 years before suddenly quitting. From the name, I started simply. After searching social media and job sites, I found a matching profile, employment history and location fitting perfectly. I messaged briefly, introducing as Mia's brother, wanting to ask about her time working there. Maria replied after a long pause, agreeing to meet at a small suburban cafe on condition of discretion. When we met, she kept looking around, voice low and anxious. Maria said she always felt sorry for Mia. According to her, Dolores controlled every household activity, schedules, outings, phone calls. Mia reported every small thing, worked housework dawn to dusk, with almost no autonomy. Maria confirmed Mia wasn't free to take the child out or to appointments without permission, and the isolation lasted years, not months as the in-laws claimed in court. With Maria's consent, I recorded the entire conversation and had her write a handwritten statement, signing to confirm what she witnessed. No longer one-sided testimony, a statement from someone who lived and worked in that very house. For the first time, I knew I had a witness strong enough to break the false narrative the in-laws used to fool the court. I compiled all documents, organizing clearly. Placed together, everything formed a complete picture. An old settled case with money, years of concealment and control, and how that family distorted the story at the previous trial. I spent hours at the desk, flipping pages, sorting into folders. 2012 old lawsuit, new company contracts, evidence from Mia and Maria's statement. Each file a piece. Placed right, they spoke the same truth. Seeing the full picture emerge, I realized it was no longer scattered details, but a consistent behavior pattern, strong enough to question the in-laws' honesty. They weren't just cruel to Mia, they were systematic fraudsters using money and power to cover up. For the first time since the loss, I felt I held something truly solid, a foundation clear enough for the next counterattack. That night, after organizing the stack of documents, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the thick folder before me. The weak neon light shone down on the densely printed pages, vague contracts, complaint emails, Maria's statement, and the old county court lawsuit records. My heart was still racing, not from fatigue, but from a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was no longer an emotional fight. This was evidence, cold, hard truth that could turn the tide. But I knew winning required strategy. The next morning, I took the entire folder to a new lawyer, not the old acquaintance who'd lost the previous case, but a more experienced one specializing in business fraud and domestic abuse. I found him through Dad's introduction, an old contact in Phoenix's legal circles. The lawyer's office was in downtown, a modern glass building with a cold, professional atmosphere. Mr. James Harlan, around 50, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses, listened as I presented. I spread the documents on the table and explained from the beginning. The 2012 old lawsuit, how the company changed names to cover up, new contracts repeating the fraud pattern, and the link to how they controlled Mia. This is a pattern, sir. Not just emotional abuse, they're engaged in systematic fraud. We can sue again, this time with concrete evidence. Mr. Harlan nodded slowly, flipping through the files, eyes lighting up. You've got something good here, Kevin. The old case settled out of court, that's a weakness. If we prove ongoing fraud, the court will have to reconsider everything. But be careful. They're rich and will hit back hard. We discussed for hours. Filing plan, witnesses, timeline. He agreed to take the case, fees flexible due to the potential. Leaving the office, I felt like carrying a loaded gun. But before filing officially, I decided on a risky move. Confront Dolores and Stephen directly, bringing the thick folder as a final warning. Not to negotiate, but to see their reactions firsthand, to confirm they were scared. I didn't tell Mia about the plan. She'd worry, advise against the risk, but I needed to face them. After months of enduring, I wanted to see them tremble. I called Stephen from a blocked number, posing as a business contact, arranging a meeting at the villa. Important company matter, I said. He agreed, voice hesitant. That afternoon, I drove to Phoenix's affluent suburbs, where the Walker Villa stood behind tall iron fences and automatic gates. My heart pounded as I parked, hands gripping the briefcase with the folder. The desert wind blew hot, carrying dry grass and dust scents, but I felt nothing beyond the boiling anger. The gate opened, and I stepped in, for the first time since Mia's wedding, but now not as a guest but as an enemy. Dolores received me in the vast living room with polished marble floors and expensive furniture. She wore a black silk outfit, hair pinned high, sitting on the leather sofa like a queen. Stephen sat beside her, face pale, avoiding my eyes from the start. The room felt heavy, expensive perfume mixed with air conditioning chill. Dolores looked at me with disdain and contempt, lips curling. Kevin Walker, why are you here? Didn't the last lawsuit loss teach you anything? She referenced the previous defeat as proof I was wasting time over a sister she deemed worthless. You're Mia, weak, unfit for this family. You should be grateful we gave her a chance. Stephen sat beside her, head bowed, staring at the floor, avoiding my gaze. He said nothing to contradict or defend his ex-wife. His silence was heavy and cowardly, like a chained dog. I looked at him, filled with contempt. The man who'd vowed to love Mia forever, now sitting like a statue. I suppressed my anger, sat across from them, voice calm but sharp. I'm here to confront you. About the years Mia was controlled, exploited, and mercilessly thrown out. You and your son turned my sister into a prisoner in this house. How could you treat a human being like that without remorse? I detailed it, from forcing Mia to do housework, banning outings, to bringing in Carla and evicting the mother and child. My voice trembled, but not weakly. This was demanding justice. Dolores let out a dry laugh. The sound echoed in the vast room like metal scraping. Her eyes slowly scanned me from head to toe, lingering on my simple suit and worn shoes. The gaze of someone measuring an inferior. She smirked. Remorse? For what? Mia was always weak. She couldn't handle the pressure of a wealthy family. Her breakdown was inevitable, not our fault. She tilted her head, voice lowering into fake pity. She couldn't adapt. We gave her a chance, but she wasn't worthy. Each word like a blade, but I didn't look away. Dolores continued, digging deeper, belittling me and my family as if it were a habit. You and your family from that little town, Prescott, only know manual labor. What do you understand about this world? She sneered. Mia was lucky to step into this house, but she didn't know how to make use of it. Then she turned to my parents, voice dripping contempt. Your parents, a truck driver and a nurse. What did they teach their daughter to make her dream so unrealistically? She should have known her place from the start. I clenched my fists until nails dug into skin, but kept my voice coldly calm. Throughout the insults, Stephen just bowed his head. No rebuttal, no defense. His silence was terrifyingly heavy. I turned to him, voice low but knife sharp. How long will you stay silent, Stephen? That was your wife and child. He didn't respond. His avoidance said it all. He knew. And he'd chosen his mother's side, money and power. I didn't argue further, just stated clearly, each word like a hammer. I'll pursue this to the end. This time with real evidence. You won't cover it up anymore. Dolores laughed again, challengingly. See what you can do. We won once, and we'll win again. I said no more. Just placed the thick folder on the table. The top page visible. The 2012 lawsuit records, Walker Investments in bold. Below, new elite capital contracts, then client complaints list. Dolores's face changed instantly. The smile vanished. She flipped through, hands visibly shaking. What is this? How do you have these? Her voice rushed. There must be a misunderstanding. We can talk privately. No need to make it big. She turned to offering Mia's return, promising to care for Leo, voice falsely sweet. Stephen finally looked up, first time meeting my eyes full of fear. I knew they were scared. Scared of the past exposed, scared of the company collapsing. I stood, voice resolute. Too late. You'll answer in court. I turned and left. Behind me, Dolores shouted venomous words. Stephen remained utterly silent. Stepping out the gate, desert wind whipped my face. But this time, I felt lighter than ever. From that moment, I knew the fight had entered an irreversible phase, and I wouldn't stop. On the drive home, my mind still reeled from what happened. Dolores's face when seeing the folder replayed, from familiar disdain to panic in seconds. Stephen standing there, head bowed, like someone aware of his guilt but never facing it. I immediately contacted lawyer Harlan, pushing to file the new lawsuit. From their reaction alone, he understood the opponents were wavering, no longer holding the initiative. When I got home and told Mia everything, she burst into tears from emotion. For the first time in ages, I saw in her eyes not just fear, but belief that justice might truly reach them. Still, anticipation weighed heavily on me. The upcoming trial would surely be fiercer than anything we'd faced. That night, I lay awake long, thinking about the road ahead. The confrontation wasn't just a warning, it was the fuse for the gathering storm. In the days following the confrontation at the Walker Villa, Mr. Harlan and I worked tirelessly. We officially filed a new lawsuit at the Phoenix District Court, this time based on a concrete chain of evidence regarding the systematic fraud by Mia's in-laws' family company. No longer vague accusations, we had the 2012 old lawsuit records, proof of the company name change to cover up, new vague contracts repeating the fraudulent pattern, and statements from harmed clients. At the same time, we resubmitted evidence related to the control and abuse of Mia, emails, messages, Maria's testimony, the former maid, and activity records proving she was confined and exploited like a slave. Harlan filed with confidence. This time, we have real ammunition, Kevin. Not just domestic abuse. This is organized fraud involving multiple victims. The court will have to pay attention. I stood beside him, heart pounding, as I watched the court stamp on the papers. This was the turning point, no turning back. While awaiting the trial date, pressure mounted. I came home to find Mia huddled on the sofa, holding a sleeping Leo. She looked more exhausted than ever, dark circles from sleepless nights. Mia whispered as I told her about the filing. Last time on the stand, I was so nervous I couldn't speak properly. Now facing them again? I sat beside her, gripping her hand. You're not alone anymore, Mia. I'm here. Mom and Dad support us. This time the evidence is solid. You just need to tell the truth. Mom and Dad video called from Prescott, encouraging Mia once more to testify. Dad looked at her long and said in his deep, steady voice, "Daughter, we've always been proud of you. Don't be afraid. No matter what happens, family is with you." Mom couldn't hide her tears, voice choking. "Mia, you've endured too much already. This time you don't have to hold back. You deserve justice." Fear was still evident on Mia's face at the thought of facing Dolores and Stephen again. She trembled slightly, but then nodded, voice soft yet resolute. "This time I won't run away. I'm doing it for Leo and for myself." Leo sat nearby, quietly playing with toys as if sensing the tension. I hugged her, heart swelling with a clear feeling. The strong Mia from before was returning. The trial opened quickly and drew significant attention due to multiple harmed clients and allegations of recurring fraud under the new entity. Local media reported, Phoenix investment firm accused of systematic fraud, tied to family dispute, packing the courtroom. Not just lawyers from both sides, but reporters, other victims, and curious onlookers. The district courtroom remained cold as before, with old wooden benches and stifling air. But this time I felt different. We were on the offensive. The judge, a stern middle-aged woman, gavels the start. Case against Elite Capital Partners, LLC, and the Walker family for business fraud and domestic abuse. Let us begin. My heart pounded, hands gripping the rail. Dolores and Stephen sat across. She tried maintaining arrogance, but I saw her eyes flicker. They knew we had something big. In court, financial evidence, contracts, and legal records were presented clearly, showing a fraudulent pattern spanning years. No longer isolated disputes. Harlan stood first, voice resounding. Your Honor, this is no accident. This is a system. From the 2012 Walker Investments lawsuit settled with large payments to today's Elite Capital, with identical vague contracts. He projected slides, old and new contracts side by side, flexible fee and dispute retention clauses highlighted in red. The jury murmured, the judge frowned, taking notes. I sat watching, tense, recalling sleepless nights comparing documents. Opposing counsel tried rebutting. This is historical speculation, but Harlan countered, not speculation, concrete evidence from county court. Then clients testified one by one, confirming false promises, forced unfavorable contracts, and specific financial losses, crumbling the defendant's arguments. The retired elderly man, losing $50,000, stepped up, voice trembling. They promised 20% returns, but when I demanded endless fees deducted, I lost my life savings. The young couple recounted, we signed trusting ads, but money withheld, no refunds. Harlan presented invoices, emails, ironclad proof. Jury nodded. Dolores across the room paled, whispering to her lawyer. The courtroom heated, murmurs spread. I glanced at Mia beside me. She gripped my hand. Kevin, they're losing. I nodded, but heart still raced. Not over yet. Regarding Mia's treatment, emails, messages, former maid's testimony, and activity records were presented, proving tight control and lack of autonomy as the in-laws had claimed. Harlan called Maria. She stepped forward, voice firm. Mrs. Dolores controlled everything. No outings, housework, dawn to dusk. I saw her cry many times. Then Mia's emails and messages were shown, revealing repeated denials of taking Leo to doctors, Stephen silently forwarding everything to his mother without intervening. The courtroom fell silent as the jury followed details. Maria confirmed, calmly stating she witnessed Mia's control and repeated delays in child medical care. Opposing counsel tried questioning testimony authenticity, but Harlan presented Leo's medical records showing unusually delayed visits. The evidence chain left rebuttals stalled. No room for denial. Faced with the chain of evidence, the in-laws' rebuttals crumbled one by one. Old arguments collapsed before documents and witnesses. Their lawyer reused the video of Mia leaving. She left voluntarily, no force. But Harlan countered, because thrown out, pushed beyond endurance. This proves control, not voluntary. Dolores repeatedly objected from the defendant's seat, voice shrill. This is slander. We're being framed. She tried maintaining control, standing and pointing at us, face flushed, but her demeanor revealed panic, hands shaking, eyes darting. The judge gavels. Defendant, order. The courtroom tense as a bowstring, everyone held breath. I looked at Dolores, heart satisfied. She was losing control like Mia once had. The turning point came when Stephen unexpectedly admitted everything, from knowing the company's fraud to silently enabling his mother's treatment of Mia. Harlan called him as a defense witness, but Stephen, face ashen, stammered, I admit it. The company defrauded clients. I knew everything. My mother orchestrated it. I followed her. The courtroom erupted. Judge gavels. Stephen continued, With Mia, I stayed silent as Mother controlled her, threw her out. I was cowardly, didn't protect my wife and child. His admission stunned Dolores. She stood abruptly. "Stephen, are you insane? Why throw yourself in?" Unexpectedly, the always obedient son became the direct accuser, shattering her final defense. Jury murmured, opposing lawyer pale. I sat stunned, never expected the coward to flip. Mia cried beside me. "Kevin, he admitted it." After that, events moved quickly. The court ruled the in-laws committed organized fraud, sentencing Dolores to 12 years as mastermind, Stephen to 6 years as accomplice, dissolving the company and freezing all assets for victim compensation. The judge read solemnly, "Defendant Dolores Walker, 12 years imprisonment, mastermind role. Stephen Walker, 6 years accomplice. Elite capital dissolved, assets frozen for compensation." The courtroom erupted in applause from victims. Dolores led away, face twisted, cursing, "Injustice!" Stephen head bowed, eyes on no one. For Mia, the court fully overturned the prior ruling, recognizing her as a victim of control and abuse, granting absolute custody of Leo, permanent no-contact order against the in-laws, and separate civil compensation for mother and child's livelihood. Plaintiff Mia Walker recognized as victim, absolute Leo custody, permanent no contact from defendants. Compensation $500,000. Mia hugged me, sobbing uncontrollably. The trial ended. Mia and I left the courtroom in silence, no longer win-lose feeling, just relief that justice had finally spoken. Outside, Arizona's sun blazed, wind cooling as if washing away the gloom. We embraced. Mom and Dad called congratulations. But inside, a slight emptiness lingered. Justice came, but if only sooner. In the weeks following the trial, life began to change, but slowly, like a wound, gradually healing. Mia and Leo still lived with me, but the atmosphere in the house grew lighter. She smiled more often, though some nights she still woke from nightmares. Leo showed small improvements. He began responding when called by name, thanks to therapy sessions funded by the court compensation. Mom and Dad sent money and food from Prescott, helping us stabilize financially. I returned to my internal auditing job, but now with a clearer mind, no longer staying up nights exhausted from calculating bills. The media continued covering the case. Wealthy Phoenix family collapses due to fraud, but we avoided reading or mentioning it. A new life, yet the past lingered, like shadows behind the desert sun. One sweltering afternoon, about 2 months later, Mia entered the kitchen with an unusual expression. She held her phone, voice hesitant. "Stephen called from jail. He wants to meet me one last time before his long sentence." I paused, washing dishes, water dripping onto the floor. That coward now in county jail awaiting transfer to federal prison. After his courtroom admission, he'd been sentenced to 6 years. Lighter than his mother's, but enough to ruin his life. "Why meet you, Mia? He's hurt you enough." Mia bowed her head, eyes red. "I don't know, Kevin. But I think it's for closure. I'll only agree if you come with me." I looked at her, heart surging. Mia was no longer as fragile, but the wounds ran deep. I agreed, not for reconciliation, but to ensure my sister wouldn't face the past alone. "Okay, I'll go with you. But if he insults you, I'm pulling you out immediately." The appointment day arrived faster than expected. We drove to the county jail on Phoenix's outskirts, a gray concrete building with barbed wire fences and flickering neon lights. The heavy atmosphere, smell of metal mixed with disinfectant, reminded me of the shelter the night I found Mia. Mia gripped my hand tightly through security, emptying bags, metal detectors, signing in. The visitation room was cramped with glass partition tables, old phones, and stifling air. We sat waiting, my heart pounding, not from fear but uncertainty about what Stephen would say. He'd always stayed silent. Now what? Stephen appeared behind the iron door, his gaunt appearance startling me. No longer the polished suit, he wore faded orange prison garb, hair disheveled, face hollow with dark circles. No evasion or silence now. He sat across the glass, picking up the receiver with trembling hands. "Thank you both for coming." His voice was hoarse. No immediate self-defense. Mia held the receiver, face pale but calm. "What do you want to meet me for, Stephen?" I sat beside her, watching, ready to interrupt if needed. Stephen took a deep breath. For the first time in months, he looked straight at Mia. His eyes weary, empty, like someone exhausted from carrying a burden too long. He spoke slowly, each word heavy. "I've been wrong for a very long time. I knew my mother controlled you, tormented you daily. I saw you crying in the room, saw Leo treated like a burden, but I did nothing." Stephen swallowed hard, voice rougher. "I was afraid of losing money, position, afraid of confronting my mother. I chose silence because it was safer, and that silence killed our family." I gripped Mia's hand under the table, feeling her slight tremble. Stephen continued as if resolved to hide nothing more. "I knew what the company was doing. I knew those contracts defrauded people. But I pretended not to see because speaking up meant losing everything. I enabled my mother's wrongs knowing the consequences. I was a coward." The confessions fell heavily, like memories torn from his chest. "I didn't lose the family the day I was sentenced," Stephen continued, voice lowering. "I lost you and Leo the moment I chose to bow my head, to stand behind my mother instead of beside my wife and child." Mia listened silently. She didn't interrupt, blame, or react. Just let the words pass, as if closing an old chapter. Through the glass, her eyes reddened but held back tears. After a pause, Stephen looked up again, voice more serious. "There's one thing I must say. Over the years, I set aside some money personally, completely from my salary and legal investments, unrelated to the company or family crimes." He looked at Mia, eyes not pleading. "About $200,000. I've transferred it through a lawyer. It will all belong to you and Leo." Stephen breathed deeply, continuing, "I'm not doing this to atone or expect anything. I just want to compensate somewhat for what I took. And so behind these bars, my heart can be a little lighter." I was stunned. I'd never thought that coward retained any conscience. Mia took a deep breath. When she spoke again, voice trembling but steadier, "I no longer hate you, Stephen. Not because what you did is forgivable. You destroyed my and Leo's lives." She paused, then continued, "But you've paid with your freedom and life. Seeing you here so worn, for me that's enough." Mia wiped tears, eyes unusually calm. "I forgive. Not for you, but for myself. So I can move forward unbound by resentment. Leo and I will live well without looking back." Those words closed everything. Stephen nodded, tears rolling. "Thank you. I only wish you and Leo happiness." The visit ended. Stephen led away, hunched figure disappearing behind the iron door. We sat a moment longer, silent, knowing some wounds can't erase, but finally they'd closed. Mia and I left the jail in silence, not looking back, knowing the past was sealed behind that iron door. On the drive home, Arizona afternoon sun softened, wind carrying familiar dust scent. Mia leaned on the seat, gazing out. "After this talk, I feel so much lighter. No more anger." I gripped the wheel, heart warm. "You're strong, Mia. Now let's look forward." But inside, some anticipation lingered. Was the money truly clean? We checked through the lawyer. It was legal. That was the final turning point, helping Mia gain independence. That night back home, Mia hugged Leo tightly and soon fell asleep. I sat alone in the kitchen, letting thoughts return to the afternoon meeting. Stephen's image clear in my mind, gaunt, hollow face, hoarse voice, as if aged decades in short time. I recalled his confessions, especially seeing Mia cry yet turning away. I also rechecked documents on the money left, all clean from personal accounts, untouched by crimes. Mia cried much after the meeting, but not from pain. It was release after years suppressed. And her forgiveness wasn't for him, but herself, to move forward unbound by the past. The moment we left the prison, the heaviness in my heart gradually faded, as if a burden on the three of us for years was finally set down, closing the painful past and opening a healing journey just beginning. Sometime after the trial, With the emotional support from our parents and the financial resources from the court compensation along with the money Stephen had left behind, Mia and Leo's lives gradually stabilized. Mom and Dad called via video from Prescott every week, sending homemade food and warm words of encouragement, staying close despite the distance. The court compensation, $500,000, along with the $200,000 from Stephen, had all been thoroughly verified by lawyer Harlan, ensuring everything was completely legal and clean. The financial worries no longer weighed heavily on my shoulders as before. Previously, month ends meant sleepless nights calculating bills. Now the bank account was stable, allowing us to breathe easier. Mia invested part of the money into a savings fund for Leo, using the rest for daily living. Leo began smiling more, though still having quiet moments, but the boy was progressing, thanks to regular therapy sessions supported by the court. Mia found a stable job suited to her circumstances, a part-time administrative assistant at a small office near home. She'd been rejected many times due to resume gaps, but now with a recommendation letter from the lawyer and newfound confidence, she was hired. "It's light work, Kevin. I can drop Leo off and pick him up," Mia shared excitedly. Leo received regular checkups with specialists and joined early intervention programs for developmentally delayed children. Play-based sessions learning to speak with dedicated teachers. The boy started calling his mother more clearly, responding to Mia's laughter. Small but clear improvements emerged. I took him to the park on weekends, watching Leo toddle after butterflies, my heart overflowing with joy. As things settled into a routine, the mother and son decided to rent their own apartment near mine, a step from dependence to independence, without burdening my life. Mia found a small place in the suburbs, just a 10-minute drive away. 2 bedrooms, clean kitchen, and a little yard for Leo to play. "I want to take care of myself, Kevin. I don't want to be a burden anymore," she said while signing the lease. I helped move belongings, heart mixed. Proud of her strength, but sad the house would be quieter. On moving day, Leo hugged me tightly and called me uncle. The boy said it clearly and I nearly cried. Mia smiled. "Come visit any time." My house felt emptier now, but I knew it was good. Mia was reclaiming her life. I returned to my own rhythm, resuming work, and dreams paused during the chaos. Relieved the family was standing strong. The Phoenix office remained stifling with internal documents, but now I worked more efficiently, even earning a small promotion. Team lead auditor. Old pleasures returned. Weekend fishing, reading at cafes, dreaming of the desert trip I'd postponed. Normal life is back, I thought, but filled with gratitude for Mia's stability, Leo's health, and family reunion. Through gratitude meetings and chance occasions, I gradually developed feelings for Natalie, Mia's best friend. Natalie, the one who messaged me that first day, sparking everything. It started with thank you meetings. "Thank you for telling me about Mia," I said at a cafe. She smiled, eyes bright. "I did it for Mia. She's my best friend." Then through coincidences, Leo's birthday, family outings, Natalie and I talked more. Natalie, a preschool teacher, gentle and perceptive, deeply understood Mia's trauma. We shared quiet concern for the mother and son, and closeness formed naturally. The relationship didn't come with explosive emotions, but built slowly from trust and understanding. No rush, no avoidance. One evening, after dropping Mia home, Natalie lingered. She leaned on the door, looking at me long before saying softly, sincerely, "Kevin, not everyone stays patient when things get heavy. You did more than a brother's duty." I looked at her, heart stirring. I don't think I did anything grand. I just couldn't turn away when family needed me. Natalie smiled, eyes softening. "That's what makes you different." From there, we began simple dates, desert sunset walks, old movies, sharing imperfect memories. Once, in rare silence, Natalie whispered, "I like you because you choose kindness even when it costs more." I turned to her, responding sincerely, "And I like you because you don't judge by appearances, but by who people truly are." Everything came gently, no fanfare, but deep enough for me to know. After all the storms, I could still believe in something lasting. We decided on a long-term commitment and held a simple, warm wedding with parents, Mia, Leo, relatives, neighbors, and friends present. No extravagance, but complete. The wedding in Mom and Dad's Prescott backyard under green pines with homemade food and wildflowers. Mia as bridesmaid, Leo clumsily carrying rings. Parents teared up. "Son, you deserve happiness." Natalie in a simple white dress, radiant. We exchanged vows amid applause. The party lasted late, laughter and stories shared. Watching Mia glow at the party, I recalled the journey. From despair, deadlock, to everything falling into place, and realized the value of not giving up. Mia danced with Leo. She was now strong, confident. I remembered finding her at the shelter, the failed lawsuit, exhausting nights, all like slow-motion film. If I'd given up then, everything now would be different, I thought. I gradually understood family isn't a place without wounds, but where no one is left alone when wounded. We weren't perfect nor strong from the start, but we chose to stay together. Parents supported unconditionally. Mia resiliently faced her pain, and I chose to fight. The path wasn't easy, but that unity carried us through the darkest days. I also realized justice doesn't always arrive on time. Sometimes very late, sometimes only when people persist without quitting. If I'd stopped after the first loss, accepted silence from fatigue or fear, truth would remain buried. The second trial wasn't luck. From digging to the end, refusing to turn from what was right. And in the end, I understood forgiveness isn't erasing what happened, nor justifying others' wrongs. Forgiveness frees oneself from resentment, lightening the heart to move forward. Like Mia forgiving Stephen, not for him but herself, so she and Leo could live anew, unbound by the past.